Newhall, full planning application for the development of 38 residential units, use class C3, 199 square metres of flexible commercial space, use class EB, EC and EG, and associated car parking, landscaping and infrastructure works, amended description. And Mrs. Coles. Coles can do it, sorry.
First of all, I just draw your attention to the supplementary document in which we have received a further 2 objections.
We can't hear. We can't hear.
Is that sufficient?
I think you bring it nearer to yourself.
Swing round the side of your computer, you might find it better. Trouble is, it's lack of space, isn't it?
It's okay. Is that better?
You'll have to speak up though.
Is that better?
Yes.
I'll try and keep that level up.
Thank you.
Just draw your attention to the supplementary document that has been submitted and published as part of the agenda. There have been 2 further objections received in relation to the application, which are identified, and there are offered responses to those. And there have also been a few issues raised regarding vulnerability assessment and conditions on the planning application. There's also been an update for the affordable housing section. We have now received an application for, I do apologise, I'm running ahead of myself on this one. So those 2 objections, and those should be taken into consideration in the recommendation. Thank you. In terms of the presentation, the application has been submitted as part of a double application, in which the LC2 application will be considered after this one. The first application that is presented in front of us now is on LC1, which is the area that's shown to the left of this screen. It forms an area which goes either side of Bridge Street, which runs through the middle, and it also includes the area where there are existing buildings which are being converted into the community facilities. That's on the lower section of this slide. In terms of the application site, as you can see, it is located very centrally within Newhall. It is within the Bridge area, which also has some other commercial developments, and the site is being proposed for commercial development, as the chair has identified, as well as residential. There would be 4 blocks, of which 2 would front onto Bridge Street to the south, and 1 would front onto a new green lane to the east of the site, and the other block would front onto Forge Lane, which gives access to the day nursery to the rear. As you can see, there are 4 blocks, and as it is a double application, block naming is A, B, E and F. C and D are located on LC2. This is the layout to the south. The only change to the approval, which is shown in the blue line, is that there would be a rearrangement of the parking area to provide some additional car parking. That additional car parking is proposed for users of the commercial community facilities, and also as a additional drop-off and pick-up for the school. In terms of views of the site, people who live nearby will know that this has been a bare site for quite some considerable time. To the left of the screen is LC1, and just before you get to the houses beyond that is LC2. The day nursery is in the bright purple colour to the left hand side, and Forge Lane runs in front of that. On the right hand side of the screen are the community buildings. As you can see, partly works have begun on that side. Again, this is from further up on Bridge Street stroke the Chase, and that's looking back down the hill. There is a bit of a slope on this hill which runs down to the river, and also to the west of the site. Just a view of the community buildings and also the old farmhouse, and in the distance you can see the development that has already taken place within phase 1. It's just bringing us around to show the current arrangements with the pedestrian walkway. This is outside the application site, and as you go into Forge Lane there are some parking spaces that are available generally. This is the top end at the crossroads, which brings us into High Chase. As you can see here, there are 3-storey properties either side of the road going north. And if we look along Woodland Way, which is the LC2 site comes right up to this boundary, that actually there's a drop down to 2-storey dwellings, but there's also a drop down in terms of levels. Looking in the other direction, because it's been raised in relation to both LC1 and LC2, view of the roundhouse. It is a bit panoramic, this one, but the roundhouse is shown on the right hand side. That is about 150 metres away from the application site in total. You can see the school, you'll know that, and the application site is on the right hand side. In terms of how the buildings will look, this is how this will look from Bridge Street. So this is looking towards the northern part of the site, with Block A and Block B and Block E all having 3 storeys. Very simple design, making use of the changing levels as we go up the site. Block E is the largest block on this site. It is 3 storeys. It fronts onto the Green Lane, which is a new pedestrian route through between the school and the day nursery. And behind all of these buildings is a courtyard area, which I'll refer to later. The Block F, which is the one that's shown at the front here, is only 2-storey, but it has an unusual roof, which mirrors one of the roofs being proposed on LC2. Design in Newhall, as you will be aware, has taken an approach that it will be in modern styling. To go through the floor plans for each of the blocks, I've identified the blocks in the little insert so that you can see where this is. So this is Block A. Block A and B are fairly similar, but Block A provides the woodwork unit to the ground floor, as can be seen to the left of this picture, and on the right hand side is one of the commercial units. And on the upper floors there will be residential units only. I'll go back one, sorry, I do apologise. There's also the bike store, and as you can see, some storage for bins and storage for the commercial unit. Both the commercial unit and the live-work unit have access directly onto the street, although with the live-work unit there is also a patio area which it has a hedge around the front of that. I'll skip that one since we've dealt with that. For Block B, as I say, it's fairly similar, but it contains 2 commercial units on the ground floor, and on the upper floors are the residential units. Looking at the largest Block E, there are underground parking shown at ground floor level, as well as residential units to the northern end. Bike store is there, and there's also a commercial unit on the corner, which has part of its frontage onto Bridge Street, but also partly onto the Green Lane. The bin storage for this unit has been revised during the course of consideration to enable that to be collected from Bridge Street. So you have along the corridor. There are balconies for each of the residential units. The size of those balconies does differ depending on the number of people in each unit. So some of them are 5 metres, but then they go up to 7 metres. Again, on the upper floors of Block E, all of the units have balconies looking in all directions. Block F is the block fronting onto Forge Lane. Again, there is some underfloor parking, bike storage shown on the ground floor. This is a completely residential block, and it is the two-storey block. So we have 3 units on the ground floor, and then on the upper floor there are 6 units there. That is out of the total of 38 dwellings, of which there are 14 which are 1 bedroom and 24 that are 2 bedroom. In terms of the commercial uses, just before we move on, those E, A, B, C and G are the new use class categories, which are for shops, cafes and restaurants, financial and service provision, and also for what was called B1 in the past, which is office, light industrial and research and development. Looking at the elevations, you'll see from the street scene views, they're fairly simple elevations with the balconies shown on block A to the south and windows to the north. You can see the difference at the base where there are the commercial and live work units. Similarly on block B, the elevation is simple in form with the 2 commercial units on the ground floor also facing south onto Ridge Street. It's not so easy to see, but this is the roof has vanished slightly on this one, but this is going to be the largest of the buildings on the site, and there are balconies as I indicated in all directions. On the ground floor there is that commercial unit onto Ridge Street and also onto the pedestrian road. Similarly again for block F, the simple elevations but with that unique roof style. Proposed landscaping is that there will be landscaping within a courtyard area for communal amenity space in addition to the balconies. And there will also be the green walk, which will be provided with landscaping, including benches, trees, and high quality external materials. As you can see from the plans, there are a number of trees within the courtyard area and some grassed areas. To the south, where the community buildings are, there is a section of protected trees. Our horticultural expert has advised that they won't be affected by the extension to the car park, but we have asked that some details are provided through attaching a condition. Parking arrangements are that there would be 38 parking spaces within the courtyard and in handicrafts. That would be 1 space per residential dwelling. There are flatted blocks. And there would be an additional 10 parking spaces, so that would make 26 parking spaces available within the communal area for the community facilities. In terms of the legal agreement that would be applied on this site, we are looking at affordable housing, which would provide 15.8, I think there's a rounding discrepancy, but 15.8 was in the report. That would be provided in the form of 6 affordable units, 4 of which would be 2 bedroom and 2 would be 1 bedroom. In terms of the community building, that should be provided as part of the phase 1 scheme, and we are now trying to tie that up through the planning application here. It is proposed that a minimum of 50% of that building will be completed, or those buildings will be completed before 50% of the residential occupiers come to live at LC1, and that it will be completed prior to 90% of the residential accommodation coming forward. So that means that we now have an end time that will actually be provided. That hasn't been the case up to now. There are some cross-boundary works, and that's why they're included within the heads of terms of the legal agreement, because there is some provision of some of the parking and landscaping for LC2, which is on the eastern side of the pedestrian walk-through, the Green Lane, but they actually fall within this application because the affordable housing, although viability suggests that that level is the maximum that can be provided on this site, we would be asking for a early review mechanism to ensure that the affordable housing is provided as quickly as possible. But in the event that it's not provided quickly, we will be asking for a further viability review to see if additional affordable housing can be brought out from the scheme. In terms of the locally purposed training, that's a requirement of our policy EE3, and that will be required in terms of providing some opportunities, for example, apprenticeships during construction. This is a final slide. The green lane has been referred to and would provide additional amenity area, although it will be public. It will provide some additional amenity for the occupiers and owners of the proposed homes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Let's go. Thank you. Right, so can we now call on the three speakers. So we've got Sheila Sullivan. Would you like to come forward? You've got 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? Clearly. I'd like to say how incredibly difficult it is for members of the public to access and analyse these documents. I'm looking at these 2 developments, Local Centre 1 and Local Centre 2 together. The development sits within Newhall Phase 1 with 560 homes and Phase 2 with 800 homes and 700 more homes currently being built nearby. It's an incredibly busy area already, with a school, a nursery, cafe, shop and local businesses. These 2 proposals will make the area totally overcrowded and add to existing pressures. They add 64 homes, between 150 and 200 new residents, businesses, a possibility of a takeaway food outlet, a community centre, one good thing, and 64 parking spaces to support all those residents and all those businesses and the community facilities. This is ridiculous. The appearance will be overbearing. It will look like a fortress, 3 stories high, on a hill, built right up to the roadside. Open space for the residents will consist of a green lane and balconies and a couple of little courtyard areas. It will make worse the lack of green space in the area generally. In 6 years, with 800 new homes built, there has been no functioning additional green public space added, and the gardens in the area are much smaller. The one green area provided on the edge development is still fenced off and flooded. It has never been opened. I quote from Newhall's information to residents in 2014. As future phases are developed, footpaths, woodland, parkland, play areas and lakes will be created for the benefit of residents and visitors. This is just not true. Sensitive, high-quality development looks to the future, to enhance the natural environment and to promote the well-being of the people who live there. These proposals want to chuck up as many flats as possible, cram people in, build or pave on every bit of land, overload the site and create hazards for local people. We can imagine an alternative, a play space for children where parents can meet, people can relax outside, trees are planted in a natural way, wildlife encouraged. This would really benefit the local community. This officer's report contains an enormous number of conditions, and that indicates to me so many doubts about this plan. And there probably isn't the capacity in the council to ensure compliance over the period of building or follow-up. So I would say to you as councillors, really think about your local people and think if this development would suit them. I think it won't. Speaking as a local person, I believe that to be true.
Sullivan. Thank you. Well timed. JD Dunn? You can use a different tabling push.
The red button.
Sorry, I forgot to ask Mr. Sullivan where she lived. Do you live in Newhall?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you did. Do you live in Newhall? Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So in terms of the site area, so it's 1 hectare, I believe, and in terms of the commitments, we're going to be only 30 dwellings per hectare. But already, if we take Sector 5 as an example, that was only meant to be 39, that is actually building now 49. So we're well over in terms of just from this development and that one, over in terms of what the commitment was. We also keep referring to surrounding areas comprising of a school and school playing fields, and also kind of like another play area. Again, it's misleading in the application, it doesn't exist, it's a car park for a school. This area hasn't been retained, and again in the commitment it was meant to be 40% of assured green spaces across the developments. In phase 2, like the fusion area, we haven't got any of the items that keep being referred to. In terms of there being 38 dwellings and about all the parking elements, already in my objection letter you can see from the photos that we already have a serious kind of parking issue, a very serious issue with the school. It's not even a few years in terms of capacity, and it's already encroaching in terms of residents around in terms of parking for that. Just a basic calculation, potentially like 3/4 of the houses, when we look around the estate, have cars. It means that about 75 spaces need to be provided just for the houses alone that are no visitors. Visitor spaces get used as permanent parking spaces. In terms of the community areas that are going to be provided, the hours of operation of the class are going to be between 8 till 10 PM, Mondays to Saturdays, and 9 till 6 on a Sundays. Again, you know, in terms of having that going on in the residential area and right opposite a school, is going to cause more congestion on a road that we use as a major road in and out for us. In terms of the applicant building the community centre, it hasn't started works. It's been in that same condition for the last 5 years that I've been there. With residents, it's been in that condition for the years previous. It's also a company that's been a going concern for many years and about £10 million debt. I don't actually see how they're going to put the money aside, given that the reason they can't build it that they're given to us every year is because they don't have the funds. So this conditional statement, I'm doubtful about it. I don't know how we're actually going to enforce it either, because there was conditioning Lindens that they would have the trim trail done before the first occupant. We're now many years on and they still haven't finished in terms of that development piece. Access to construction as well, that's a concern. Where are they going to get access through? Because at the moment it's meant to be around Hall Road. I mean, they'll have to come through all the developed areas already to start doing this work. And then just in terms of speeding along that road too, the current things and the chicane and everything are dangerous because it's on curvature. So they're not really effective at the moment, and I think they'll be worse in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Good, well timed. So we've got Kieran Wheeler, the agent.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Kieran Wheeler and I'm from Savage Planning, and I'm speaking in support of the application. Firstly, I'd like to thank officers for their report and the positive recommendation. The LC1 site is located at the heart of what the wider Newhall estate and formed part of the original Phase 1 permission, as you've heard. It comprises one of the last remaining development plots from this phase and requires the submission of a new application as the permission has now expired. It will enable development in this part of the site to be completed and deliver new market homes and affordable homes as well as flexible commercial units to help activate this part of Bridge Street. Importantly, Newhall proposed to use the receipt from the sale of the land to fund and deliver the new community buildings on the opposite side of Bridge Street. This will benefit the whole of Newhall and enable a core part of the community office to be completed and handed over to residents. Newhall are currently looking at options to make an early start on the delivery of the community buildings. This would follow the grant of planning permission from this application early next year and would be in advance of the sale of the land. As with other parcels, Newhall projects have provided a design-led approach for both the LC1 and the LC2 sites. The proposal will provide a high-quality scheme with buildings extending up to 3 storeys, reflecting the height of the adjoining properties on the chase and ensuring there will be no adverse impact on surrounding amenity. We've had extensive liaison with your officer team and place services over the last 2 years. This has resulted in a number of amendments to the scheme, including a reduction in the level of car parking and the replacement of land and the provision of replacement landscaping and tree planting within the central courtyard space. These amendments have been requested and we've made them in response to those requests and also to reflect the sustainable location of the site and address the requirements of policy IN3 of the local plan, which seeks a significant modal shift to no-car modes and new schemes. Newhall projects recognise that parking has been a problem at times in the vicinity of the site and have sought to address this. The surrounding roads, including Bridge Street and Forge Lane, have been put forward for adoption, and this is currently being considered by a process by the County Council. To address the matter in the interim, they have introduced yellow lines on Bridge Street and have worked closely with the head teacher of the local school to stop parents dropping off and collecting children in this area. Pending the adoption of the streets, they have also used a private enforcement company to issue tickets for unauthorised parking. Overall, the application will provide a wide range of benefits. It has been designed to be highly sustainable through the use of a fabric-first approach in efficient energy systems and the provision of PV panels. It will provide market and affordable homes and commercial space and enable the delivery of the community buildings. As detailed in your officer's comprehensive report, the scheme accords with local and national policy. I therefore respectfully request that the planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler? Members, it's questions and clarifications, not debate at this time. The officers. Anyone wants to start?
I've got a number of questions, Chair. One is under the cleansing and environmental areas. In the report, it refers to dangers to operatives loading cars, and it also says that the distances, I think, could be up to 30 metres from the bins. And I understand there shouldn't really exceed 10 metres, so I just want to first of all clear that. I've got other questions, Chair, but can I do this one first?
Yep. Do you want to deal with those as they come?
Yes, so Councillor, in terms of the distance from the bins to residential properties, that is 30 metres, and that is the standard that's applied by Waste Services to the Council. In terms of operatives operating any machinery that sits in the road, there are obviously considerations that have to be given to personnel. The Highway Authority has indicated that there are no specific highway safety concerns about vehicles being parked on Bridge Street or Forge Lane in connection with this application.
Councillor?
Yeah, in regard to the sustainable drainage team, apparently under the report there's a holding an objection on this. Can we clarify that situation?
Yes, Councillor. There is sufficient information in terms of the Phase 1 development and strategic level of infrastructure has already been provided for this site. In terms of detail, we have decided that it would be preferable to use a condition to require the level of detail that's required here.
Satisfied? Yep, carry on.
On the heritage advice, it says that the proposal is considered to cause harm to several non-designated heritage assets. Can we have an opinion on that?
It's my understanding that its consideration is with regard to the community buildings which are being refurbished as part of the scheme, or at least they will be completed as part of the scheme. I'm not aware of any other non-designated heritage assets. Clearly the roundhouse is a designated heritage asset, but that actually won't be viewable from the OC1 scheme because the school is in the intervening distance.
The only other question I've got, Chair, is in regard to public transport and where we are with that, because we're supposed to have public transport, apparently we haven't got it.
No.
Yes, it is proposed as part of the Newhall scheme that there will be a bus route and it will travel along Bridge Street. As you can see from if I use this one, you can see that the development does extend north of the application site as it currently is, but it doesn't extend to link with the rest of the loop that will be provided as part of the bus circuit through the application site and through the whole of Newhall but past the application site. It will be provided as soon as that loop is available, or as soon after that as possible.
Would I be right, Peter, in saying that because the not link road, the whole road all the way round is not completed? Is that perhaps a reason why the buses aren't yet in the service?
Yes, we have current applications elsewhere on Newhall which will provide some of that road, but there isn't currently a road for buses suitable for bus use at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Coming back to the point that was made about the services, with the use of the bin cupboards and the bins being 1100 bins, will there be dropped curbs sufficient in that area for them to actually get the bins up and down to actually empty them as well?
Our waste services team has specifically requested that there were no dropped curbs. It doesn't facilitate the mechanisms that they have in place, and they prefer that there are straight curbs to bring the bins out to. They've specifically been involved in discussions with regard to refuse and location of the refuse lorries in relation to this site. That is a requirement, a stipulation that they've made.
Mr. Chairman, I hear what people are saying, and for my point, all the cleansing and environmental aspect of the situation is concerning. I see that the council obviously are going to look into it, but I'm concerned about the size of the bin hold, which has already been said. I'm concerned about the waste contractors having not to be the width of the road. My concern is this, that this is a new build, and it's not, a lot of the places in Newhall have got narrow pathways, but we should be thinking in a wider aspect to make this much more acceptable for the waste contractors, which are obviously not very happy about the whole situation. And I wondered if we could put some formal clause on there to make sure that everything is definitely looked into in a deeper fashion. Is this possible, Mr. Chairman?
You mean a service management plan?
Sorry?
A service management plan?
Yes.
Do you want to propose that?
Yes, I do indeed.
Somebody second it? Any more questions for the
Just one of my old subjects of parking again. We see that each property will have an allocated space, but what about let's say visitors, if people that live there have more than one vehicle? What is likely to be the impact in the immediate vicinity, particularly as there's a school close by as well?
Councillor, in looking at this site, it is the most accessible location within Newhall. The fact is it relates and is very close to the school, the nursery, the community facilities that will be provided, but it is also close to the other facilities that are provided on the other side of Bridge Street, and that it is also going to be on bus route when that comes forward is a reason to consider a lower number of parking spaces. Having said that, there are visitor spaces that are available. Unfortunately, there is some overspill, and there are additional parking spaces within, adjacent to the community facilities being requested as part of this application.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Can I understand what the current position is with parents dropping children off at school with regards to cars? Because I've been down there and it is quite narrow, the road. And what would be the provision once the community building's been done? Because I understand there'll be additional parking there for dropping off children. I just want to clarify that.
I can't really speak too well to whether or not there's difficulties with the parking, but I'm aware that there is difficulties parking for school pick-up and drop-off time. There is some congestion on Bridge Street. The idea is that the community facility will provide an extra 10 parking spaces, but that will amount to 26 parking spaces. That will be for use by people using the facilities, but it's expected that the facilities will mainly be used during the evenings, possibly at weekends. So that will enable 26 parking spaces to be generally available for peak times to try to reduce some of that. In terms of parking restrictions, there are already some parking restrictions on Bridge Street, I understand. I haven't seen those details myself, but there are, it is proposed that Bridge Street, unfortunately, will become adopted roads, and then it will be for the County Council to decide whether or not to introduce or continue with parking restrictions in those locations. The whole of Newhall has been designed so that it is walkable in terms of small children. I know people do decide for other reasons to take vehicles to a local primary school, but there is always that opportunity to walk. And the added benefit of this scheme is that there will be a walkway through from the day nursery to the school for those people who have children of both those age groups.
Add to that, Councillor Davis, I have been in meetings with the head teacher at the school, and yes, there are problems at the moment. The main problems at the moment is because the roads aren't adopted. Essex can't put in parking restrictions per se. But there is drop-off areas around the side, and there is a lay-bys outside the school. The other problem at the moment is that a lot of the students, pupils going, their children, come from outside the area. As the youngsters grow and they go to the school, there will be local children. So hopefully there won't be so many problems with the parking in that area. Yes, without doubt there is some at the moment, but the community areas can provide some if the parents use it. Any more questions? Councillor Suter.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that the government are looking at any new builds to have electric vehicle charging points. How many vehicle charging points are there going to be on this development?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we are looking. This is obviously a very new area of policy. We do have a policy of the local plan that was adopted in December last year, The exact details of how many electrical vehicle charging points is going to be a matter of, we're attaching a condition, because government advice is coming forward as we speak, on how many should be provided in new developments. We will be looking at any details that are submitted under the condition.
Could I clarify, because I didn't hear clearly, there are some alterations where is it remaining 50.8% affordable housing?
As Councillor Cock, unfortunately there was an error corrected into the submission that was provided to us, and it suggested that there were 30% affordable being provided on the adjoining site. That didn't apply here. This is subject to viability assessment, where it's been detected that there is no viability to provide affordable housing, and it has been subject to development actually offering 6 affordable homes, despite the fact that there is no viability in the scheme.
Any more questions about Councillor?
My question is there is already a speed restriction going down there. Will that follow right past the new development and past the actual schools, or will there be a clear way instated in front of the school? Do we know that from highways, or is there any big questions been asked regarding that?
There are no details provided as part of this application to change any of the existing arrangements. In terms of highways, as it's been identified already, until the roads are adopted by the Highway Authority, they cannot take any action to put in any measures themselves. So it's with the owners of the site at the moment.
Shall I add to that, if you like, having conversations with highways and the school? Until it's adopted, I can't really do anything, but I don't think there's any reason it should be turned into a clearway, because there's houses further up the road, so it couldn't be a clearway. We have managed to get some zigzaggy lines outside the school, but none of the parents ignore those. There is a lay-by across the road, so currently, yes, until it's adopted, Essex won't be able to put anything more signage. There's some signs in, but until it's adopted, they won't complete those. And I know a conversation I had about a month ago, they're pressing the Newhall project to get the road to standard. I think it's almost a standard, so they can adopt it. Does that cover that?
Yes.
Any more questions? Go. Oh, one more, yep.
Well, obviously the residents have spoken as well. I'd like to know what they're going to do to protect any other amenity areas across Newhall, or ones that the pre-existing ones, if there is anything that's going to be protected, or in this development, the passes, the walkways that we've got, what are they doing to protect them, that they will always stay like that within the development?
I do apologise, I was slightly distracted there, trying to look at another matter.
Repeat it or you got it?
I think it was mainly about the pedestrian walkways.
Yes, and amenities around there.
In terms of the application site, there are footpaths shown on the plans, and the green lane is a pedestrian area as well. That will have, my understanding is that there will be bollards either end to prevent motor vehicles from using that lane. Was there another part of that question, sorry?
Regarding the trees around there, what's going to be protected as well? Because obviously we have got an area around there that's actually got trees.
Trees are on site, are they?
Yeah.
Are they? Are the trees on site?
There are no trees on site currently, except for the band that I mentioned earlier, that is to the south of the community facility. There are conditions, I think condition 9, if you look in the agenda, in the report, condition 9 looks to protect those trees.
Okay? Any more questions? Debate? Members.
Well, thank you, Chair. All I'd say is that the local residents seem to have put up quite a strong case in regards to the overdevelopment of this area. And I'm inclined to agree with them. It seems to actually contradict, if it's right, in terms of the open space. When Newhall first started out, it seemed to be quite a good scheme, but as time has gone on, it's just become a amorphous development without any regards to open space. The tradition of Harlow has always been open space. Even Church Langley has a little bit of green wedge and so on. The way things seem to be going here, everything seems to be very intensely developed, and I just don't think at the moment there's a lot of questions, too many questions really arising over the viability of the development as it stands. And I think we should really seek further information and see if it could be reduced in terms of its density.
Yes, I agree, Chair. There are too many questions and too many conditions. I'm always concerned when I see a lot of conditions trying to cover up difficulties. My particular concerns relate to the affordable housing and the fact that they claim that it's not even viable for one, but they're only offering 15.8%, and I don't think it's good enough to say, oh, that's fine, we'll accept that, we'll put up with that. Our policy is 30%, and that's what we should press for. It's not even pepper potted, the little they offer. Heritage have a number of concerns, significant harm to the 19th century assets, and it's not in character. Cleansing have various objections, others have other objections, and we've heard the neighbours commenting on the, or at least they've written about the breach of 40%, promise of green special area across the development and spaces, and we're again in a higher density than the rest of Newhall. So all in all, I think we should refuse it. We have grounds already laid out in case they don't agree to the section 106 on page 37, helpfully. We've got these objections and policies that we could refuse on if they didn't agree. Well, I think we should refuse them beforehand, that there's insufficient affordable housing. It does harm to the amenities of residents in a variety of ways, and there's a lack of community centre. I don't know whether that's going to be in place or will apply at this stage, but certainly in terms of the green space, I think we should include that as a major reason, Chair, for refusal.
Anybody else? Can I just say then, answer some of those questions if you like, Jean. There is a very, very large green space less than 100 metres away, which is I think it's called the Teletubbies play area, plus football pitches. And there's very, very large areas of woodlands. And the other side, there's the lake you can walk around as well. So there is green areas there, which I'm trying to say. I'll touch, I probably don't need to touch on the parking, which obviously is highlighted here. But I think we need to bear in mind that Harlow is looking for a 50% modal shift from car use. So it would go against that if we try and approve schemes that aren't coming up to Essex parking standards, which incidentally is under review. So that may come out in a year's time with different parking standards. So I'm just trying to cover that area. So think if we do the service management plan, then that will cover the waste
Yeah,
problems, won't it? So
yes,
we
indeed.
need to, do we need to vote on that first? If we,
Do we need to
It's
go for a
separate.
vote for that?
yeah, and then we go to the main vote. So unless anybody else has got any discussions, okay, can we, so Sue's, sorry? Oh, sorry, Councillor Davis, yeah?
I agree with a lot of Councillor Clark has said. I thought there was a lack of facilities for children, but you've outlined it isn't, so I didn't know that. I've been concerned about the way the developers haven't built the community centre, and we've had to force them to do that at the end of the day. I'm concerned about the parking. I know they're trying to downsize with the parking, but I assume what's going to happen is that the community centre is going to be used by people living in their flats. And so when the drivers come along to drop their children off in the morning, they won't be able to get in there because there won't be any route, there won't be nowhere to park. I'm concerned about the whole development of this. I think it is overbearing. But I'm also aware that if we turn something down without good reason, because recently we turned stuff down that's cost the council money. So I'm conscious of that. But I would agree with the last two speakers, is that, you know, it's overbearing, it's not really good for the community, I don't think. But I'm not sure what I can do about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it does, you know, the local houses are similar height. So in a lot of Newhall, been in my area, I'm often around Newhall, they are 3 stories high, so that covers that. Anyway, so we go to vote on a service management plan. That's been proposed by Councillor Livings and seconded by Councillor Purse. All those in favour of that, subject to obviously the main vote, so that's unanimous. Okay. Okay, so now we go to the main vote, which is the recommendation is to grant planning permission with the conditions which are 1 to 22, but there are some additions, if I can find them. Right, I've got that marked. Yes, on page 8 of the addendum. There's revised recommendations to include amending conditions 7, 17, 18, 22 and 23, which are in here. So that's the whole of the recommendation. So all those in favour of the recommendation? It's the whole thing. All those against? So that's